People matter. If people did not matter, we would not be where we are today. We need to put people first at the center of everything we do, says Amina Mohamed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Today I have with me Mr. Mohamed Yahya, who's a development practitioner with extensive experience spanning over a period of 20 years in preventing violent extremism, peace building, conflict response, and public policy. In June 2019, Mr. Yahya was appointed to lead the United Nations Development Program in the Federal Republic of Nigeria as the resident representative, with a team of over 200 people who are supporting the government of Nigeria in reaching its key development goals. Welcome, Mr. Mohamed.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And this is I Love Your Work. My name is Aisha Ogi. I am your lead for the podcast today. So, Mr. Mohamed, thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I have so many questions. So many. This whole week you've been in the news and I'm really, really honored to have you on the podcast. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. So I really have to appreciate you for making the time. I know you have a lot to do, traveling the world, doing all these meetings, working on the United Nations development programs. And this week, like I said, you've been all over the news on a Regional Stabilization Facility in Maiduguri, Borno State of Nigeria. And Borno has had many situations lately that were not the best of news. So I'm seeing great news coming out of Borno, which happens to now be one of the most secure states in Nigeria.
It's very secure. I won't say 100% secure, but the insurgency has reduced. I think the government has done a wonderful job in reducing the impact.
Yes.
The conflict is not finished. But the governor says, in his opinion, the situation is 75% better. It's not 100% there, but it's better than it used to be a few years ago.
Well, I'm really happy to hear. So I would really like to hear about the Regional Stabilization Facility.
Yeah.
I saw some nice architectural photos of the program and the launch of the space, which will be taking in refugees, I believe. But I would love to hear from you on this.
Yeah, so the stabilization idea is it's something that we at United Nations Development Program tried it initially in Iraq after the invasion of northern Iraq by ISIS, especially Mosul. And once ISIS were pushed out and the community had lost everything, houses destroyed, infrastructure destroyed, UNDP came in with the idea of stabilization to support government effort for quick reconstruction.
Yes. So
the stabilization work has three components, pillars. I don't want to go jargon on your listeners. Sometimes the UN we tend to talk to ourselves. So, but the idea is one, to build infrastructure quickly, fast, and this includes housing, roads, bridges, whatever that was destroyed, and build it better than it was before it was destroyed.
Yes.
And use the modern technology, renewable energy, etc. A second pillar of the work is about livelihood. People are coming back. And in the case of Nigeria, many people have been in IDP camps for more than a decade. So they've lost all the skills of survival, essentially, because they have been relying on humanitarian aid, and now they're out. How do we give them the opportunity to restart their work? So the livelihood component is important. But the number one component is security.
Yes. People
are in the IDP camp because they have been pushed out because of the insurgents. They've been attacked. They've lost family members. There are many widowers. There are many people who have lost their children. Taking them back to where they started from and restarting their life, we have to ensure that government and the security forces are able to provide the kind of security so that they don't experience similar experience that initially dislocated them. So that's what stabilization does. But the main aim of stabilization is to strengthen the relationship between government and the citizens. If you have a government that works for you, that takes care of your security, that invests in you, that gives you ladders of opportunity, many people tend not to be attracted to join the insurgency. Because sometimes we forget when we say insurgency, we use words like terrorism or Boko Haram. We tend to think these people come from another planet.
But they're
They
human
don't.
beings like you and I.
And they come from the same countries that they're attacking. So the question is, why are they destroying their own communities?
Yes.
Recently, during the launch, the Governor Zulum took me to Mafa, and he showed me where he grew up in Mafa town as a child, where he used to run around. The house that his father lived in and his mother still is there. And he told me all this was burned down. So I went with the governor, he showed me where he grew up. And the most striking thing was how he was very open that some of the people who destroyed Mafa were from Mafa.
Wow.
So the question is, why are they doing that? And I'm a strong believer that if you have stake in society, if you grow up in a society that invests in you, if you grow up in a society that provides education, health, security, and gives you an opportunity to better your life, you're less likely to join insurgencies.
Yeah.
So for me, as a development actor, I need to be open and clear and say that insurgencies happen partly because development has failed. And development is the solution to stop more young people coming. And this is what stabilization tries to do.
Yeah.
So Ngaram, which is about 1 kilometer outside Mafa, is one of those places that were completely burned down by Boko Haram.
Yeah.
Everybody who lived there has been moved out for 10 years. To see people come back with the leadership
For 10
of the
years.
Yes.
That's really
Absolutely.
something for us to all be very happy about.
Absolutely.
You know, I visited Maiduguri as a photographer years ago, and I remember the trauma, like the traumatic stories that I had to document, and it affected me in every possible way. I can imagine people who have lived that for 10 years. You know, what did it feel like for you when you went for this launch?
I mean, it was very emotional, I must say. I mean, we all, I mean, I don't know which part of Nigeria you grew up with. You grew up in.
I've been to 33 states. I've lived almost in at least 13.
But if you think about your childhood, what streets do you remember? I know you're supposed to.
Even in Maiduguri, I remember Lagos streets with the nice suya.
Exactly. So the home is so important for people. It's when you go back home. When I go back to where I grew up in, and the idea of remembering those streets, and you tend to remember. The thing that strikes me when I go back home is places where I thought was long distances were shorter.
They now seem so small. Yes,
but it's also a kind of it's a special relationship with home. Even if you work in some other places or you moved out, imagine not being able to do that at all. And I think that was the most striking part. People coming back home telling us, I used to walk here, this used to be here, and nothing was there. But now, they've lost the smell, everything, the cattle,
visuals, everything.
But to be fair, the government now, I mean, I was there, the government of Borno State has put 1,400 animals back.
Nice.
So there's a lot of things going. So in that sense, it was touching. People are restarting their life, but it's not a finished situation.
Yeah.
People have to relearn to live independent.
Yes.
From handouts they were getting in IDP camps. People have to feel secure, and as I say, the conflict has not ended, and there's still a risk of Boko Haram attack. So all those kind of things are still there. Those are the things that worry me most.
Yeah.
The risk of
things falling back, yes, to the way it was. So I think for me, when I think about these situations, I always wonder, and I'm sure some of the listeners would want to know. So how does the UNDP come up with these programs, and like what's the collaboration like with government? I know because behind the scenes I have had the chance of working with government, but for those of us who don't, you know, how does this start and how do these programs come about?
So for us, I think it was good that you asked that question, because some people confuse between humanitarian action and development work.
Yes.
Humanitarian action is very specific. It has international humanitarian law. It's impartial. It has all the principles. Development is completely different, because you can't do development without government.
True.
And I always say that we can't love. I can't love Nigerians more than Nigerians love themselves.
True.
So which means then government has to be at the forefront of the work we do. So for UNDP, the government of Borno, government of Adamawa, government of state governments, I should say, of Yobe, are at the forefront of the stabilization work. And if the stabilization is essentially about building relationship between government and the people, you can't have the UN in the front, neither can you have our flags and our logos. So if you go to any of the stabilization area, you will not see one UN logo.
It's purely government.
It's government, and government invests in their own money. For example, in stabilization work, federal government puts money, state governments put money. We also put money from our partners. So to answer your question, the government of Germany, government of the UK, we get resources from Sweden, Netherlands, Nigerian federal government, so EU. So they come together, but we also get resources from government, and we mix it together, and then we implement through government. And I have a team of 50 people in Maiduguri that works across the livelihood component, the military, civil military coordination, issues around engineers to make sure the quality of the homes are top notch. So all those kind of things that we're in the back supporting government. And ideally for me, success is when I'm not needed in Nigeria. And when we leave is when Nigeria doesn't need our support and it can do it by itself. And most time Nigeria can do, but in conflict areas we tend to have lower capacity, and then that is when we come in.
And that's when you come in.
It's been an amazing eye-opener. I've studied, obviously, I understand Africa's history. I knew a bit about Nigeria. I visited Nigeria before. I even lived a few months in Calabar in 2001.
Really? Okay.
So I am familiar with the country, not as much as now, because I've lived here now for 3 years and a half. No, but I've always said that Nigeria's success is the African success is if Nigeria doesn't fly, I always use the analogy that it's like being in a plane, and for the plane to take off, we need a pilot, and Nigeria is the pilot. So
Nigeria is the pilot
of the African plane. So if the rest of, I'm in 39B, think about it, it's somewhere in the back sitting there. So I want the pilot to fly the plane. So if anything I can do and the UN can do to get that pilot to fly that plane, which is the Nigerian pilot, then the rest of us will be in good shape. So for me, I understood very quickly that Nigeria's development, Nigeria's growth, Nigeria's coexistence and cohesion is critical for Africa's takeoff. I suppose when you're in a very prosperous, then what is the right word? Very excited society in a democracy that is still perfecting itself. It's understandable that there could be a lot of rowdiness, a lot of things online. But I think my humble observation has been that people confuse love of nation with like of government.
True.
So if a government is in power that you like Nigeria. If a government in power you don't like Nigeria. And that is very unusually Nigerian, I must say, because in other African countries people don't confuse, and they'd be wrong, but the countries I know in East Africa, people love country in spite.
They love their country regardless
depending on whoever is government.
So
Nigerians, especially, this is a social media phenomenon, to be fair. An ordinary Nigerian loves their country.
That's why I said online.
Exactly.
Because we see a lot of that online. I think when you go out and do Vox Pops, you have people who still have a lot of faith and hope. And I'm really glad that we have people like you supporting. And I'll go back to what I said about the constructions, right? And I've seen the beautiful photos of this place. And I know, based on some of the things that I read, we have a female architect, right?
Nigerian.
Who's Nigerian. We're looking at the value chain. I don't know what you have to say, because when we're talking about infrastructure and the kind of facilities that we bring to communities, we don't really look at the value chain of how it works for the community. When we say, oh, we're just going to build 1,000 houses, how do you explain that to our viewers, our listeners, to understand the importance of actually bringing infrastructure into certain areas in different communities? So
let me probably go back. So when I first came here, UNDP had built some houses. I won't mention the name of where we built the houses. Because I'm about to say something not nice about those houses, because they were very ugly, I must say. They were like boxes. They were building boxes, and a sense, first for viewers to know, I have 2 bosses. Both of them are women, but both of them are Nigerians. So I have to perform.
I can help you name them.
So I have My direct supervisor, who's the UNDP head
Yes.
for Africa, is a Nigerian woman
Yes.
called Ahuna.
Mm-hmm.
And the Deputy Secretary General, number 2 in the UN system, is a Nigerian woman as well. So, and they know this country more than I will ever know.
Yes.
And then being the head of a UN agency in a country where my 2 bosses are female Nigerians, puts much more good pressure on you to make sure that the ambition you have for the country and the work you do has to be at a level that is at least matches the ambitions Nigerians have for themselves. So going back to the houses now, and I say we, I'm not talking about personally UNDP, but all the UN system. But I think we tend to have a low expectation for the poor. What do I mean? People are displaced. They live in an IDP camp for 10 years. They're poor, they have nothing. Anything we give them,
anything you give
them, they'll be very happy.
Yes.
But I think we can do more. So we should have something more to offer them. And this is the idea of, and it doesn't cost too much. We're not talking about
to put the little extras. Right?
So making sure that we get designers to help build houses that do not turn up into sauna, for example, because the place is very hot.
It is.
So you give them a box houses, you put some ramshackle things, and they'll be happy because they live in a horrible.
They were living in shacks. Really, yeah.
But then there's a sauna. You go into those places, they have a lot of kids sweating all night in a place that we didn't think, for example, basic things like how the air moves through, or the wind comes through, or ventilation, simple things like that. So then we thought, okay, why don't we get a top Nigerian architect who is patriotic about this country, but has never thought about ever doing such a thing. But you know, Tosin was always...
Tosin
Tosin was a well-known Nigerian young architect who's famous globally, a young upcoming architect who normally designs very expensive beach houses, very expensive place for the rich Nigerians who were building in Lagos. So I met her and I said, look, how do you feel like, how would you like to come and design an entire village that was destroyed? Not one house, 500 homes.
Wow.
Clinic, school, and be creative,
I'm sure,
and be culturally sensitive, and come and so she said, after a few discussions, she agreed and she came and she stayed there for months to understand the culture.
Is based in Lagos.
Yes, so she had to go to Maiduguri, understand the culture, the Kanuri history.
Yes.
Because the specific place where we're building is a Kanuri-dominated area and Shore Arab. So she needed to understand the culture and then design something that is culturally acceptable, but of a quality and beauty that any of us will be proud
wouldn't mind living in.
So this is what we did, and it didn't cost too much more money than we had planned. And now we've launched this, and it's a very, very
500
beautiful
homes.
500.
That's
so
how many families you're looking at?
So average the family is 6 to 8 per house, 2-bedroom houses, and then they have internally. You have a little vegetable growing inside the compound, so it's a very nice built place. It's still a very, what you call it's not a very expensive place, but it's well designed. So when you go there, for example, it may be hot outside, you walk in the home, it's cool, the air, the way it's designed. So it's a really beautiful.
And that's the beauty about working with professionals.
Working with architects. And I had to learn because I've never worked with architects in my life. And all the discussions we had, the kind of creativity that it involves. And then saying on top of that, we had to get locals to be involved in the construction. We had to get people who do murals. We use the patterns of the Kanuri hat.
Yes, I think I saw the drawings
on the schools.
Front, yes.
And then more, we want to have ambition for people to live quality lives. So then we brought solar panels. The school is solar panel generated. Police stations, I must say, the IGP would contest this, but the most beautiful police barracks in the world in Nigeria is in Mafa. So you should go and see it. The same with the most beautiful police station you will ever go. If a criminal goes there, I don't think they will want to leave. I'm joking, I shouldn't say this. But the point is, it's a very beautifully designed, well made place. So so we're very proud.
I think I'm very happy. At least we know the people moving back into that community get to have a life.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there is a plan ahead for job creation, skill acquisition, because I know even within the IDP camps, there are a lot of trainings that would equip them.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate getting all this information, and I know the value that this has created for this community, and especially for someone who's explored the Maiduguri zone. I know the difference of what I've seen and the kind of life that they were living in the IDP camps. And, in shacks, a lot of these people had to build shacks by themselves in the middle of farms and areas, and hide in the mountains and things like that. So I think this is such a beautiful story, and I think even for Nigeria as well, because when we're talking about IDPs, we tend to forget it's not just those living in that area. You have people who came from other communities that were doing business in those parts, who also became displaced. And it could be any of us.
And these people are not necessarily poor people who were displaced.
They were not,
People had their livelihood going on. They had a good life, and there were some who were obviously very poor people who were displaced. And they were not displaced because anything they did. They were displaced because they could not be protected.
Yes.
And I think that is a message for government to do more, and the government is doing more, to be fair.
So they are doing more in what sense?
Security. I must tell, I've been here 3.5 years now. I've seen the improvement in security in the Northeast.
Okay.
I know there's other security challenges in the country, but overall, the military is doing much better. It's much more invested. I've seen it. The police. For example, this place, we built a police station. There was no police station in Garam for 10 years. Like, they was all destroyed.
Yeah.
Police are back.
Yes.
They live there. So it's the police has delivered. And one of the most interesting relationship we have with government is we do parts of it, they do the other part. So we build the teachers' quarters, they provide the teachers. We build a police station, they provide the police.
Yes.
So it's a partnership. It's absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and the future of the ability of people to live normal life will depend on security and development. I keep saying, security approach alone will not end the insurgency. Development will end the insurgency, because when people have something to do, they are not deprived, and they are very secure in the environment. It is very difficult to recruit people into the insurgency.
Yes.
And now we feel things are changing, and we're hopeful, and hopefully these people we needed a bit of help. This is not charity. I just want to, because people have been displaced. Everybody needs a bit of help to restart.
Yes.
And the entire concept is I call it real freedom, independence from dependency.
True.
Of an IDP camp where you rely on being fed to going back and restarting your life.
Yeah, it's a really, I think it's a very positive story for the UNDP, for Nigeria, and for the people of Borno. And I'm sure I would love to continue going on, because you have so many other projects.
But you should visit this place. We need to get you there. To probably do a podcast from Mafa.
Yes,
the next one.
That would be awesome. Hopefully, maybe in the best police station in Nigeria.
Exactly. It will be very nice. You and it's very quiet.
Yes. So I definitely look forward to it. I remember flying over those areas, via helicopter, as a photographer, and seeing the beautiful terrain. And it may be very hot during the day, but at night the weather is so beautiful. And
the people are so generous. It's very nice. I keep telling people, I go to Maiduguri every quarter. I go to Maiduguri, and I try to stay as long as possible. Somewhere I will. You saw the documentary by Tayo Aina.
Yes, I did.
YouTube.
It was such a beautiful documentary.
Exactly.
That's someone I started following him a couple of months ago. I think he's such an exceptional storyteller.
Exactly.
And I'm really happy that you're working with creatives.
Yes.
Bringing in the storytellers, the narrative guys, the people who will tell the rest of the world what is happening over there.
And also you. The stories you tell, the podcasts you have.
Yes. We do as much as we can when we can. And I think that's the beauty about when we talk about development, is not just about these people, but every individual has a say and a way. Even just telling the story is important, because people will get the support that they need just by knowing about it.
Yes.
So, I'm very happy to see it, and we really appreciate the work that you do. I know we don't have that much time, but I definitely intend to bring you back on the podcast, because I feel your life is the little that I know is very interesting. Very, very interesting. I know Mr. Mohamed Yahya has lived a very humble beginning.
I'm a peasant. I say I come from a small village.
He calls himself a peasant.
And I love peasantry. It's an important life skill to have. I come from a very small village I was born in a city, but then I lived in a small village. This is why I'm very attached to the concept of how development happens, why is this important.
Lowest level, yes.
And bottom-up development approach. So it's important to me. Yeah.
I love it. So we'll definitely be having you back.
I look forward to it.
What I love about this podcast is we love to say, I love your work.
Yes.
I love your work. And
so do we do like a mug?
Yes, I love your work. Exactly. And we also have a t-shirt for you.
Thank you.
That is Nigerian colored.
Very good. I like it.
It's Nigerian colored and it says, I love your work.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you wearing it one of these days. In the meantime, I'm going to sprinkle the flowers.
Very good. Thank you. Just flowers are sprinkling now as we speak?
They are. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I look forward to bringing you back on because we need to hear about that peasant life. Thank you, Mr. Mohamed.
Thank you very much.
And to everybody else watching, I look forward to seeing you again and catch you soon.